Hi everyone, Professor Mendez here. In this video, I will be talking about developmental domains. When we think about development, we also break it down in these areas of development. So a developmental domain refers to the areas of development. So the domains are physical domain, cognitive domain, social-emotional domain. Depending on someone's field of study, they might think about expand on these domains. What I'm providing to you here are the overarching areas, which are physical, cognitive, and social-emotional. Development in the physical domain involves changes in the shape and size of the body, brain structure, sensory capacities, and motor skills. When we're thinking about the physical domain, sometimes it might be confusing and people might think about growth, for example. So when we're talking about growth is something a change that happens in the body that reaches maturity. So for example, when we're thinking about height, at a certain point in someone's life, they're going to stop growing in terms of their height. However, we know that development are these changes that happen over time. However, for young children, especially when we're thinking about infancy, toddlerhood, early childhood, middle childhood, and perhaps even getting into adolescence, the shape and size of the body is going to change. So that's also going to fall under the physical domain. However, for adults who have already reached their maturity in such as height, the size of their hand, the size of their feet, we would not necessarily consider that as physical domain for adults. Now, when we think about the motor skills, is what the body is able to do, then we're thinking about change that can happen over time. So motor skills are things such as walking, running, holding on to a pencil, being able to catch a ball, right? So it's what the body is able to do. And we know that this is development that can happen across the lifespan. So if me in adulthood, if I decide to, you know what, I want to learn how to play the piano. Well, there's certain things that my fingers are going to need to be able to do on that keyboard that I can learn now, right? But those are skills that need to be learned. They need to be taught, or I need to learn them in a particular way. But I can get there, right? Over time. Everything when we're talking about development, it typically happens over time. And I could become a better piano player if I keep playing for a long time, perhaps. So the physical domain also refers to brain structure. So the brain is a physical organ. So what the brain can do, and its size, especially in early childhood, infancy and early childhood, it's growing. And then different parts of the brain are responsible for different functions in the body. And then sensory capacities refers to the vision, sight, taste, understanding, how far I am away from something, okay, or how deep it might be. Development in the cognitive domain includes acquisition of skills. Typically, individuals might think of all of these skills collectively as understanding. But let's break that down a little bit further. So these skills would be perceiving, thinking, reasoning, problem solving. So perceiving. Ooh, this tastes good. Oh, this cake actually, I don't like cake. Or someone is smiling at me. That must mean that they are friendly or that they like me. So perceiving. Thinking is the process by which we go through and consider and break down some of these skills. So perceiving is through this process of thinking. Is the process by which we think, we reason, Thinking is the process by which we perceive, reason, problem solve, understand language. Reasoning is, you know what, I have one cookie. Well, that's more problem solving. I have one cookie, there's two of us, what are we going to do here? Reasoning is, if I share this cookie, maybe this friend will like me more. And if I don't share this cookie, maybe this friend will not want to play with me. And then when we think about language, that also falls under the cognitive domain. So it's the use and developing language through the sounds that we're able to make, and what do those sounds mean? When I want something, how do I communicate that with language? That all falls under the cognitive domain. And then also, when we're thinking about all of these skills, it's also the process of learning. So when we're thinking about learning, that also falls under cognitive domain. And development in the social-emotional domain refers to changes in patterns of emotions, personality, social relationships. So if I am angry, what does that feel like? When I am angry, what should I do? What should I not do? Is it okay for me to throw this pen at the person that's next to me because they made me angry, or I felt angry with them? Personality refers to the way that we relate and interact to the world and those around us. So are we more shy? Are we more outgoing? Social relationships. How do we form and maintain relationships? The social-emotional domain also refers to socialization and enculturation. So when we're thinking about socialization, what experiences and messages have we been taught about what it means to be in this group or in the world around us? So what do children need to do? What is acceptable for children to do or not to do? How are we taught that? That's the process of socialization. And then enculturation is, how do we fit into our larger cultural group? Typically, the domains are taught in this way. First, you're going to learn about the physical domain, then the cognitive domain, and then the social-emotional domain. For the process of learning, it's important to kind of break things down into smaller parts to understand them. However, when we think about the way that development works, it actually works a little bit more like this. As development within the physical domain is occurring, development is also occurring in the cognitive domain and in the social-emotional domains. So even though we study them separately, an individual is going to be developing simultaneously in all of these areas or domains. So it's important to think about how they influence one another. So for example, if you have a child that they are, say, starting school and they're having a difficult time regulating their emotions, when they are angry, they are very expressive about it and may tantrum. When they are excited, they might be really rambunctious about it. And if that continues beyond the time of, starting school, it's expected. But if we're already toward the end of the school year, or they've been in a particular room for several months and they're still having a difficult time regulating their emotions, that might go into, say, the cognitive domain. Children who have challenges, emotional challenges or regulating emotions, it might impede their ability to, say, learn a task, because the emotional response tends to take precedence over the learning. And then when we're thinking about physical domain, if you have a child that, say, is interrupting in the class or is constantly being reprimanded, they might not necessarily, say, be able to go play outside or to socialize with other children during outside time. That's not something that is recommended. However, it's something that might happen either in a school or even at a home. So that might impact their development in the physical domain. So, these different domains are all going to influence one another, and it's important for us to look at them as they interrelate. That's it for now.